Welcome to the Crowds Line College Football Show, featuring Coach Lou Holtz and Mark May. Every week, you can predict the winner, the score, and compete against the crowd for prizes. Sign up on the Crowds Line app or by going to thecrowdsline.com.
Welcome to the Crowds Line College Football Show with Lou Holtz and Mark May. I'm Kevin Trimble, your moderator, and I'm going to tell you, I'm luckier than a young Marine on payday during a 96 because I get to spend each week with legendary football coach Lou Holtz, won a national championship at Notre Dame, and Mark May. He's a College Hall of Famer. He's an Outland Trophy winner, and he's a two-time Super Bowl champion, and he's also soon to be in the class of the 2018 ACC Legends. So, gentlemen, it's great to see you. How are you? Great weekend. What do you think?
Good stuff. A lot of good football out there, Coach. A lot of big upsets this weekend. That's why I can't wait. Week to week, every game matters.
You never have the same team 2 weeks in a row, particularly if you had a great win one week, you aren't going to have a great football team the next week. It's just the way it is. I never had the same team 2 weeks in a row, and I coached for a lot of years.
Well, we're going to see how that goes because if you look at this past week, people say number 2, number 6, number 7, they lost. Well, guess what? So did 15, 16, 19, and 21. 5 of the top 25 lost to unranked teams. Now, we're going to talk about quite a few of those in our review, but I want to talk about number 6. So before we talk about, though, I'm going to go back to week 1. Did a little research. You know, Coach and myself were history majors. Mark, I don't know if you were too, but we got 3 history majors. We cannot go wrong, okay? This is golden. Here's why. Because all the way back in week 1, it was the premiere of the Crowds Line College Football Show with Lou Holtz and Mark May. Mark May said, he said, every time that West Virginia gets high expectations, especially under Dana Holgorsen, they don't meet those expectations. So what does number 6, West Virginia, Will Greer, Heisman Trophy winner, their Heisman Trophy candidate, goes into Ames, Iowa at night against a freshman quarterback, Brock Purdy. Mark, you saw that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, just what I thought about West Virginia. That's the way they've always been. They've got a high-flying offense. They've always got questions on defense. I thought their defense would be better this year, and they were better this year in certain circumstances, but they can't get over the hump. Every time they face adversity, particularly on the road, they can't win against decent football teams, and if they face good football teams, they're definitely not going to win. The schedule's only going to get tougher for West Virginia from here on out.
Well, there's no way they were going to go undefeated. So no matter what happened, whether they lost a game week 1 or week 9, you would have said the same thing. That's my home state. They have a good football program. We played them for the national championship. They were undefeated. They had a great football team. They've had a lot of good football teams. There's a lot of pride there. The season's not over. There'll only be one undefeated team when this whole season's over. It won't be West Virginia, but they will be in a bowl.
You're going to see, because I know I'm going to hear about it when I go home for Thanksgiving to West Virginia with the in-laws, because they'll be still talking about why are they in the college football playoff. Now, you have some other good things that happen. For some people, Auburn lost to Tennessee after losing to Mississippi State. Is there some kind of new blood? Is there some new energy down there in Knoxville? What do you think, Mark, about those volunteers?
I think Jeremy Pruitt is the right guy at the right time. Phil Fulmer, the athletic director, did a terrific job in going out and searching for the right coach for this program. Everyone panicked early when they lost games early that they thought they were going to win, but just like Phil Fulmer, they're very patient in this situation. They knew Jeremy Pruitt would turn this football team around. They don't have all the pieces yet. It's his first year there. They're covered with less bare, but I think he's doing one heck of a job at Tennessee right now, Coach.
Oh, they're getting better each and every week. You could see it from their opening loss. I think it was to West Virginia. I might remind you, Mark. But they had a quarterback named Garantino. He wasn't even on the 2 deep. Paul Chryst was going to be the quarterback, the transfer from Stanford. But they just keep building the program, building it. And to beat Auburn on the road is very, very impressive.
Well, there's 8 remaining undefeated teams in the country, and 3 of them are in one single conference, the American Athletic Conference. So that's going to equal out. 2 of those, Clemson and NC State, are both undefeated in the ACC. They play against each other this weekend. So all these things are going to kind of get sorted out. So with that said, let's talk about this past week and what has led to all these upsets. What we're going to do is we're going to go and look at our College Football Show contest and our Rapid 5 contest from Week 7. Let's talk about the Week 7 College Football Show contest. We picked 4 games in that contest. Number 2 at Georgia at LSU in Baton Rouge in the daytime. Mark, you won that one. Number 17, Oregon at number 7, Washington. So what happened? Oregon won in overtime. Coach, you picked Oregon. 15, Wisconsin at number 12, Michigan. Coach, you picked that one as well because the Wolverines they left no doubt. And Pitt at number 5, Notre Dame. And it was a close one. And Mark, the most inspiring speech we've seen since, rock me. I don't know, but almost. We'll talk about that. Coach, you won that outright. But let's talk about the number 2 Bulldogs go into Baton Rouge. And it probably wasn't, I don't care what anybody says, it wasn't really close. They shut him down. Look at Jake Fromm. Jake Fromm had 2 interceptions. He was sacked 3 times. LSU, Coach O, has some defense, have a smart quarterback. Mark, what's your thoughts on this and how this shakes out for the rest of the season?
Well, you can't turn the ball over, it's plain and simple, and especially you can't do it on the road. And if you look at Georgia, they had 4 turnovers. LSU had none. And I think the key to this game, the rushing attack of LSU. They kept Georgia off the field. They had 275 yards on the ground. The running backs did a great job, but I still go back to their quarterback. The quarterback transfer from Ohio State, Joe Burrow. In this football game, wasn't spectacular throwing the ball, 15 to 30 for 200 yards, but what he did running the football, advancing the football, 66 yards on the ground, Coach, 2 rushing touchdowns. He is the leader of this football team. He inspires other players around him, and they believe in him. And when he's at home, he doesn't make mistakes. He's got 0 interceptions on the season in Tiger Stadium.
Well, when you approach a football team going into a game, first thing you say to them, man, we have to be the most physical football team on the field. If we aren't the most physical football team on the field, let me know so at halftime we can get on the bus and go home. LSU averaged 5.4 yards per rush. It was a domination. But let's remember, the week before, they got beat by Florida in the last minute when they threw an interception. They came ready to play. There's no doubt about it. They dominated the game. And Jake Fromm was averaging close to 70% completion for the year. He had less than 50% completion. It was a complete domination by a very, very good LSU football team, but I don't think they're a great football team. We did not see the proper Georgia team. I'm sure we'll see it against Florida in a week.
Well, this week they've got Mississippi State in Baton Rouge at night. We'll see how that goes. And Georgia has a bye, and they're going to then get ready to play what could be the SEC East Division Championship game when they go to Kroger Field, Commonwealth Stadium in 2 weeks in Lexington. Next game, number 7 Washington went to number 7 Oregon. And much like the Oregon-Stanford game, this one looked somewhat similar, but it played out totally different. Oregon wins in overtime. Gotta love it. C.J. Verdell, the running back from Oregon who fumbled against Stanford, he scored the winning touchdown in overtime. Mark, you saw this game. Washington, has a lot of injured players. Jake Browning's still a great player. What do you think about
and not
this?
only the winning touchdown by C.J. Verdell, he had 111 yards rushing and another rushing touchdown in this football game. Hey, this is a hard-fought game. These two teams don't like each other. There's pure hate between these teams. And if you watch this game, and I watched every play flipping back and forth, it was a very physical football team. But I'll tell you one thing, both these coaches did a heck of a job. And Coach, when you go to overtime, anything can happen. One team scores a field goal, that's Washington. The other team scores a touchdown, they win the game, that's Oregon. And the reason why they won it, because they were more physical up front in the end. Washington was nicked up in this game. Gaskins, the running back, got hurt in this game. They weren't 100% in this game, but that's not an excuse. The bottom line, when you look at the Ducks, very resilient football team. They learned from their mistakes against Stanford earlier this year. They didn't make those same mistakes. They got to overtime and they found a way to grind it out and win.
I predicted Oregon would win, Mark, for the same reason. Here's the amazing thing. The difference in that football game, on third down, Oregon was 9 for 18, and on fourth down, they were 3 of 3. When you go 12 out of 21 on critical downs and you convert it, and Washington was giving up less than 32% success on third down. Oregon did a great job, but it's great to see Verdell score the winning touchdown because he did it in overtime. That is the same young man that when they're running the clock out, all they got to do is fall on the ball. They gave it to Verdell, a freshman. He fumbled the ball and cost him the Stanford game. Here they come back a week or 2 weeks later in a critical time. They had the confidence to give him the ball. I am so happy that he had success. Two excellent football teams. Neither one of them are out of the conference race yet. And I can promise you one thing. Washington is cheering for Washington State this week against Oregon, because if Washington State wins, then once again, Washington will control its own destiny.
Well, as you said, Coach, we're going to talk about both these teams again because Oregon is going up to Pullman to face the Pirate and Mike Leach and his Washington State Cougars, and Washington's going to host the Wounded Buffs from Colorado. Third game, number 15, Wisconsin, went into the Big House, and it was 38-13. And Jim Harbaugh said, we're just going to run the ball. And, oh, by the way, Shea Patterson ran the ball. They all ran the ball. And the defense at Michigan stood up, and they ran the ball. See how this is going to go next week, but that was a big game because, one, that pushes Michigan in their division, pushes them up. But, oh, by the way, Wisconsin can still win the division on their side. They could play again. You never know. Mark, talk to us about this game in the Big House.
Well, the star for Wisconsin, Jonathan Taylor, still rushed 102 yards, I believe, in his football game. He still got over 100 yards. He's one of the nation's leading rusher. But the problem was quarterback Alex Hornibrook. 7 for 20, 1 touchdown and 2 picks. That's not getting it done. And then, Coach, they only had 11 first downs to Michigan's 21. And not only that, on third down, they were 2 for 11. When you go to the Big House and you're 2 for 11 on third down, you're the opposition, you're not going to get it done. My question with Wisconsin is, where is the defense that they had last year? Last year, their defense was awesome. And I know they had to replace a lot of people, but they gave up a ton of yards and a ton of points earlier this season to Nebraska, and that's a winless football team. And then they go to the Big House and they get stopped, and they give up 38 points, but they could only put 13 points on the board. I love this Michigan defense. I think that they're outstanding. After that Notre Dame game, this is a different football team from top to bottom.
Oh, no doubt. It's not the same Michigan football team. And I think they have an excellent chance to win out. I think they have the best chance to beat Ohio State and maybe anybody else. I was very impressed with Michigan, but here's the amazing thing. You know, Alex Hornibrook, he's a veteran quarterback. Going into the last 5 minutes of the game, Mark, he had less than 25 yards passing. What a great job by Michigan. And here's the amazing thing. When you hit on the head, Mark, Taylor averaged over 5 yards a carry. For the game, Wisconsin averaged 5.4 yards per rush. That's pretty good. Yeah. But it doesn't compare favorably if you only give them the ball 15 to 20 times. On the other hand, Michigan rushed for 340 yards. When you rush the ball like that, and the biggest improvement in this offensive team for Michigan is their offensive line. I mean, they have each and every week they've gotten better and better. When you take a good offensive line, you take a team that can run the ball, you have a great quarterback like Shea Patterson, an outstanding defense, and a great punter, you have a chance against anybody. Let's congratulate Jim Harbaugh. He's done a tremendous job. All the naysayers a few weeks ago, I'm not sure he goes. The guy, you don't win at Stanford the way he did. Win with the 49, and he will win big at Michigan. He's got it going. But this week is critical for Jim Harbaugh in Michigan.
Coach, we're going to talk about Michigan State. We're probably not going to talk much about Wisconsin, Illinois, because that's who they have next. But this next game was our 4th game in the College Football Show contest. And this game was started off with a pep talk, the likes of which we haven't seen since, whether it was Rockney, whether it was the great Santini, it doesn't matter. Mark May gave the pep talk of all pep talks. Here it is right here.
To rise up and beat Notre Dame.
And so you have that pep talk. And what happened? Waking up the echoes, the Pittsburgh echoes. The problem is Notre Dame leaned over after 50 minutes of football and they hit snooze, and then they won the game 19-14. Mark, talk to us about this.
Brian Kelly should have wore a mask to the press conference at the end of the game because they stole this. It was worse than Jesse James. If you saw the officiating in this game, I almost fell over backwards. Pass interference calls against Pittsburgh when they tip the ball, don't touch the wide receiver. But then, no, against the other side, it's a phantom call. And how about this? Roughing the passer. I want to tell you the exact words right here. The NBC rules expert in the booth said, exactly, I would not have called roughing the passer on that play. That tells me a lot of home cooking in that stadium. Pittsburgh laid it out on the line. It was a great game to watch. It was a spirited game on both sides. Both teams were very physical right down to the end. But some of those calls, Coach, I got a question. And going back to 2012, the same thing happened. Remember the young tight end from Pitt? His name was Holtz, that's right. Holtz. His last name was Holtz. And he got jobbed on a PI call that was a phantom call that should have been called. It hadn't been called. For some reason in the stadium, it's almost like playing in the shoe. That call is always going to go in Notre Dame's favor.
Mark, winners laugh and tell jokes, losers say deal. You're always blaming somebody else. Now it's the officials. How about the coach? That's the worst call I've seen on 4th down and 3 You're down by 5. You got the ball basically in midfield. And 3 minutes to go in the game, you know they're going to be in a punt safe. What are you doing running the punt? And if you're going to have somebody throw the ball, have your quarterback, not a punter from Australia, I think it is. It was just incredible. But Notre Dame learned a lesson. And the thing about it, Mark, and we have to remember this, you can only have a team emotionally ready 4 times a year. Because for every height you have, you're going to have a depression. It's obvious looking at this season, Notre Dame had to be ready for Michigan, which they were. Had to be ready for Stanford, which they were. They will have to be ready probably for Syracuse, but they have to be ready for Southern Cal. So when you play a Pitt, you play a Vanderbilt, you play a Ball State, you aren't going to be emotionally ready. You just go out there and you do your job, you win a game, and you move on from there. They're still undefeated. They didn't drop a bit in the ranking, and let me say this, Pitt put on a great performance there. I congratulate them, but it's still a loss.
Touche.
Coach Mark, I tell you what, I'm going to keep watching that pep talk because I showed it to my kids. And, Mark, they're pretty fired up, and they haven't met you yet. They are excited about that.
I watched it, went out and played golf and shot 108. It didn't motivate me, Mark.
Hey, Mark, I'll take 108. So, gentlemen, that was our Week 7 College Football Show contest review. Our Week 7 Rapid 5 contest was quite different than the College Football Show contest, because here's what happened. Missouri at Alabama. Mark, you won that on a spread. Colorado, USC. Mark, you picked USC. UCF at Memphis. Mark, you won that on a spread. Baylor at Texas. Mark, you won that on the spread. But Michigan State at Penn State, we have to push that because neither one of you picked it. I did, though. So let's talk about Missouri at number 1 Alabama. Now, is this maybe a participation trophy, or what's that one they give you, the 110% effort award at the end of the season? They kept Alabama under 50, and Tua hurt himself a little bit, got nicked up, but Jalen Hurts is pretty good backup. So what do you see of this going forward, Mark? Talk to us about Alabama at Missouri, or Missouri at Alabama.
Well, they kept them at under 50 points in this game. It was just 39 points they put on the board, but they had 550 yards of total offense in this game. Tua turned the ball over on a bad read and a sack fumble. But the key is, that's things that Nick can get on his football team about, because guess what? Everybody's telling them how great they are, how invincible they are. They go out in this game and they made mistakes. The defense was outstanding. 183 total yards to Missouri and their quarterback, and not only that, just 10 points. There are things this team can work on. They aren't invincible, but they are the best college football team on the planet. And this is one of those games where they got tested by some of their mistakes, but they were just too strong and powerful on both sides of the ball for Missouri to keep up, Coach.
Well, they weren't emotionally ready to play the game, but they are so good. And Tua, once again, 265 yards, 3 touchdowns, and tweaks his knee. But what made me delightful, Jalen Hurts come in. Here's a starter who only lost 2 football games out of like 18 that he started. Has been demoted to second team. He comes in, 7 out of 8 for 115 yards. Alabama will be ready. There's no doubt Alabama's looking forward to one game. That's LSU at Baton Rouge in a couple weeks. Now, after this game, Alabama has an open date, as does LSU. They know that's such a big game because the people in LSU have still not forgiven Nick Saban for leaving LSU, going to the pros, and coming from the Miami Dolphins back to Alabama. That bothers them to this day, and that is such a big game for LSU. That's when Alabama will be ready mentally. They weren't ready Saturday, but they don't have to be. You have to be the best team in the stadium, not the best team in the country each week.
Coach, there's one thing that needs to be said about this, about Jalen Hurts. One thing that was always the problem with Jalen Hurts, he was a great runner at the quarterback position, but not a proficient passer. Now he's getting that opportunity to work on his passing skills. It's only going to make him a better quarterback down the road and Alabama a better football team down the road.
There's no doubt about it, and Jalen Hurts has thrown the ball so much better this year. But Tua is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody dominate college football like he does. He's got a quick release, he has great vision, and not only that, this is probably the best group of receivers Alabama's ever had. They can run, they can catch, and they get a lot of big plays.
Well, you're right, Coach. Tua is pretty much the answer, but he may be a little fragile. We don't know. We'll see as we move on. But Missouri did a great job in that sparring partner role for Alabama. Our next game, Colorado, undefeated Colorado, number 19 at USC. They're not undefeated anymore. Tough game out there, 31-20. Defense for USC scored a touchdown. So, you know what? Maybe USC is coming back with that young quarterback. Mark, talk to us about that.
Well, the star for Colorado, LaVisca Chenault Jr., has been outstanding on both sides. He's lined up at every position besides offensive line, and he's been dynamic. He still had 100 yards total all-purpose yards in this game, but USC was able to contain him most of the football game. JT Daniels played well, but it was an ugly game for USC. If you look at the points and look at what happened in this game should have been a lot closer. USC was only 2 of 10 on third down in this football game. But the good thing is, they still won the game by only rushing for 62 yards in this game. They found a way to win, and I think for Clay Helton, they had to get over that hump. I think that bye week helped them. But they still have to work on the penalties. 13 penalties in this football game. They're not going to get it done. And they've averaged 11 penalties per game. They've got to clean that up, Coach.
USC won the football game. They'll probably win their division. I feel that. And I think they'll lose to Washington in the championship game. But be that as it may, they have Southern Cal averaged 2.1 yards per rush for the game. But here's the amazing thing. I've never heard this statistic this high before. USC had 4 sacks and 16 tackles for losses. I mean, if you have more than 3, that means you aren't dominating the line of scrimmage. All we ask our offensive line, give the back a chance to get the line of scrimmage untouched. And when you have 16 tackles for loss behind the line of scrimmage, you aren't going to win a football game. It's a great win for USC, but it was done on defense, not by offense.
Credit young JT Daniels. He's about 17 or 18, I think, max years old, and threw 2 early interceptions and then recovered from that. So maybe he will grow from that. Our next game, number 10 UCF went to Memphis in the rain. Disney goes to Beale Street, Memphis Blues, and this was a heartbreaker. This is a blues song in itself. 31-30, UCF sneaks a win. Mark, you saw this game.
I don't know. Coach was really high on UCF. I think he was sweating it out there. They were behind the entire football game till Mackenzie Milton made one heck of a play down on the goal line, sacrificed his body, got helicoptered around at the goal line, and scored the winning touchdown for UCF. Josh Heupel right now is still one of the good young coaches that's out there, but he's got to get his team ready to play each and every week. You can't give up over 280 yards rushing on the football in a football game, Coach, and expect to win. Memphis dominated this game, particularly on the down from the beginning of the game to the end of the fourth quarter, and just got beat on a great drive by UCF at the end of the game.
How in the world could you say Memphis dominated the football game when they scored 0 points in the second half, Mark? They had 31 the first half. That I want to tell you, this game has always been close. Memphis is a very talented football team, but I still believe in UCF. I think this defense is better than last year. I think that Mackenzie Milton is a great player. He makes plays. He can run. He can throw. He's the leader of the football team. Make no mistake about it. Going into Memphis was not easy, particularly when Memphis was primed for this football game. But UCF did win the game. And when you hold your opponent to 0 points in the second half, that tells me you got a pretty good football team.
Well, we have to decide if Texas is a pretty good football team because they were in our fourth game. The Baylor Bears and Matt Rule went into Austin, and they almost caught the Longhorns napping. They were going to do some cow tipping, but you know what? 23-17. Austin, the Longhorns held out. So, Mark, you saw this game. What's this tell you?
Well, they're resilient as a football team in Texas. And if you look at the quarterback, Sam Ellinger went out early with a hand injury. Shane Buechele came in the game, played a decent football game, kept them going. Neither of these teams scored a point in the fourth quarter. I thought that was interesting that nobody could move the ball in the fourth quarter, put points on the board. But if you look at Texas on both sides of the ball, they're getting it done. They're more impressive to me now than they were at the beginning of the season. I thought they were going to be a 500 team, maybe get the 7 wins this year. But the way that they've turned it around after the Maryland game, it's a different football team. They're not going into places like Baylor and going in with their B game. They're making sure that they find a way to win football games, Coach, and they're prepared each and every week no matter who they play. There was no letdown after the Oklahoma win.
Anytime you win a football game, you have to walk away and say, that's great. And the best thing you can do as a football coach is to win a game very sloppy, because you still have a win, but now you have the players' attention. All these things we have to work on, etc. And that's where Texas is right now. It wasn't a very impressive win, but let's give Baylor credit. I think they won one football game last year, and they throw the pass into the end zone on the last play of the game with a chance to win it. So it's nice for Texas, but you can't evaluate a football team after your first game. You couldn't evaluate Michigan after Notre Dame. You couldn't evaluate Texas after the Maryland loss.
Memorial victories usually don't add up to much, but I know what does. History. We talked about the land grant trophy. Michigan State is going to Penn State, and we went back to the history books. And what did we find out? We said that Michigan State was 6-1-1 when this game against Penn State was not played in November. And Coach, I really appreciate the compliment. That felt like a pat on the head because you said you appreciated my research and you said if you ever needed, you'd call me if you needed help with a crossword puzzle. But guess what? I got a crossword puzzle and I thought you could help me. And it says one across. It's an 8-letter word that stands for the defenders of the nation of Sparta. Spartans! Michigan State went in to Happy Valley, and guess what? They're now 7-1-1 against Penn State in games not played in November, and the land grant trophy, the beautiful thing that Mark and I think was made at the vocational school, but that beautiful thing is going to East Lansing. Mark, talk to us about that
Brian
game.
Lewicki was outstanding in this game throwing the football. He threw 52 times. That's not Michigan State football. Usually you run the football. And if you look at James Franklin, remember what he said after Ohio State? We need to become an elite football team. They definitely were not an elite football team against Michigan State because Michigan State has not played well the entire season. But the key in this football game is Trace McSorley, Coach. If you looked at him in his last game against Ohio State, was outstanding. We're patting him on the back. 460-plus yards of combined total all-purpose offense. He goes in this game and has less than half that against Michigan State. It was Michigan State's defense and their passing offense that won this football game for him in Happy Valley.
But Penn State had this game. They had the game. Michigan State's backed up. There's only about a minute to go. And where the key in that game was on third down. Trace McSorley is running the ball, and he ends up going out of bounds. He stays in bounds. Michigan State has to use their last timeout. Then instead of getting the ball deep in their own territory, Michigan State, with no timeouts, minute and 20 to go, they got it with a timeout. That made a big difference. And your defense has to play better. They're backed up. There's a minute to go. No timeouts. And they hit a 25-yard touchdown pass on the last play of the game. And you're going to say, yay, Michigan State. Yeah, that was a great throw. But I look at Penn State's defense. You know, some people say, at the end of the game, let's get in a prevent defense. Other people say, let's get in a victory defense. I call it prevent victory. You've been defending them for 59 minutes. Why change? But no. They gave up too much yardage. I know, a heartbreaking loss for Penn State. Great win for Michigan State. Great comeback. I agree with about Lewerke. He competed tremendously.
Maybe that's the last time Penn State overlooks an opponent and says, oh, we're not going to call a whiteout. We're going to beat that team. Michigan State hosts the Wolverines from Michigan. We'll talk about that in a second. Penn State at Indiana. Well, that's our rapid fire from week 7. Very quickly, gentlemen, let's talk about national championship picks, which we started back in week 1. Mark, your national championship teams: Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Washington. Obviously, you've got Alabama winning the whole thing, but Washington's out. You got to replace
Yeah,
them?
I think I'm going to put the Wolverines in there, the way that they played. Everybody talks about their defense, but I'm talking about their offensive line. Coach mentioned that earlier. Their rushing attack, they're getting it done doing that way. And not only that, Shea Patterson has gotten much better each and every week. I think it's a comfortable fit with him at the quarterback position for the Wolverines. The way they're playing right now, I'm going to have to put them in, and I'm going to have to take Washington out.
Coach.
Don't go there. I got to take Georgia. I got to take Georgia off my list. I got to replace them with Alabama. I thought Georgia would be much better this year. Their performance down at LSU. I still think that they could go on to win the conference. They got to beat Florida, and they beat Florida, then they get the chance to play Alabama for the championship. So I have to put Alabama in there. I will leave Ohio State in there, which I have. I will leave Notre Dame in there, and I will leave Clemson in there for the present time.
Well, Coach, Mark and I are going to have to check the rule book because I think there's something about the College Football Show bylaws that you have to bid on Alabama if you didn't pick them before. But we'll talk about that later. Gentlemen, there you have it. That was our review from Week 7. It's exciting. Make sure you listen to it on our podcast. the Crowdline College Football Show with Lou Holtz and Mark May podcast. Now that you listened to our Week 7 review on the podcast, now it's time to hear about Week 8 College Football Show contest. We've got 4 big games to start off. Number 16, undefeated NC State, is at number 3, Clemson. Number 12, Oregon, at number 25, Washington State, Mike Leach, the Pirate. Number 22, Mississippi State, at number 5, LSU, Baton Rouge, at Night and Death Valley. Number 2, Ohio State, at Purdue. A lot of history to that game. But let's start off with number 16, NC State, at number 3, Clemson. These teams are undefeated, and some people say NC State hadn't played anybody because they were going to play the Mountaineers of West Virginia, and that got canceled. So we're going to see how this goes. They're undefeated. Trevor Lawrence, he comes in there, he's slinging the ball. But as Mark, you brought up, Clemson said, we're just going to run the ball. When we need to run the ball, we're going to run the ball, and they're running the ball. So Ryan Finley, great quarterback, NC State. We're going to see how that's going to go. Talk to us, Mark. Is this close or is this a blowout?
This is going to be a blowout in my mind. I think when you look at both these teams, we should get the best out of each team because they're both coming off byes. But I think you look at the way that Clemson left the field against Wake Forest, 63-3, had over 470 yards rushing on the ground, 3 running backs over 100 yards in that game. Trevor Lawrence, a quarterback, 20 of 25, a couple of touchdowns. They were hitting it on all cylinders, and their defense was phenomenal, giving up just 3 points in that game. I think right now when you look at their defense, they're finally putting it together. With these teams both being healthy, I think Clemson has just too many athletes in this football game, and I don't think it's going to be close in this game against NC State. I think it's going to be a long day for NC State's quarterback, Ryan Finley, Coach.
Well, he's had a tremendous career, Ryan Finley has at North Carolina State. But they beat Boston College last week by 5 points. And Boston College did not have Dillon, the great running back. It's a nucleus of their offense. So to only beat them by 5, that surprised me. In addition to that, they do not have a very, very impressive win. You look at NC State, they beat BC by 5 without Dillon. They beat the University of Virginia. And then they beat a couple teams that I think play 8-man football. But in any event, you go back to Clemson. I agree with you about running football. Travis Lawrence is the real deal. I think people are going to learn more about how efficient he is, how effective he is. But the offensive line, 3 seniors and 2 juniors in the offensive line of Clemson. And my feeling is, if your offensive line are the leaders of the football team, you're going to have a good football team. The running backs always tell you how many yards I average. Quarterbacks, how many yards I threw for a reason. Offensive line, there's only one statistic. How many games did we win? That's why I think Clemson will win the game 37-21.
Well, this will be the 87th meeting. Clemson's won 13 of the last 14.
But I went 4-0 against Clemson when I was at NC State.
I got Clemson winning 47-27.
47-27. Number 12, Oregon, 5-1. Big win, is going to Pullman, Washington to play number 25, Washington State, Mike Leach. And he's got Gardner Minshew, transfer quarterback from ECU. And what's Mike Leach do? He said, just throw it. Just throw it. Swing your sword. Throw that ball. And you know what? He's averaging over 400 yards a game just throwing. Now, Oregon, as we saw, Mario Cristobal. And don't forget where Mario Cristobal played, what kind of team he was on in college, and then where he coaches an assistant. He's trying to bring physical football to the Pac-12. Now, physical football and air raid, swing your sword. How did these match up, Mark? Oregon, Washington State. It's a big game right now up in Pullman, Washington.
We talked about Gardner Minshew. He leads the NCAA or the FBS in passing yards this year, and it's got to be a challenge for the Oregon defense and Jim Leavitt. But I still think this football team's going to come down to the Oregon offense, running the football, throwing the football. They've got the big guy at the quarterback position that's been outstanding this year, Justin Herbert. He's completed 63% of his passes, 17 touchdown passes, only 5 picks. It's going to come down to that, and their offensive line of Oregon is going to be key in this football game. It's going to be a tough place to play, a tough environment, because they're going to the Palouse, Coach, and everybody says it's a tough place to play. I've never played there, but everybody I've talked to said in the Pac-12 that's one of the toughest environments to play besides Hudson Stadium in Oregon. So it's going to be a challenging for the Ducks, but the Ducks will end up winning this game, swimming away 44-28.
I think you're completely wrong. The reason it's such a tough place to play is because you have to play Washington State, and every year, quarterbacks come, quarterbacks go. Mike Leach is a real deal, Mark. He can flat throw the football and put points on the board. They have one loss this year, and that was to Southern Cal by 3 points at Southern Cal. This game is at Washington State. The great quarterback, as you mentioned, that transferred from East Carolina. He was playing quarterback for East Carolina last year and couldn't win. He goes out there to Washington State doing a tremendous job. I look for Washington State, and their defense is a lot better than you think. Plus, Oregon had a great win, and this is one thing you want to look at. When a team has a great win, they aren't necessarily going to play real good the following week because why? Everybody's talking about the overtime win against Washington. When you lose or you play mediocre, everybody's looking forward to the future. I think Washington State wins this football game 38-28, and everybody in the state of Washington will be happy, including the Washington fans, because that will put them back in the driver's seat. And wouldn't it be great? The Washington State winner is going to dictate who represents the North Division. That'll be exciting.
It's going to be exciting, Coach, because this is the 97th meeting, going back to 1901. And if Washington State wins, it'll be 4 in a row because they won 3 in a row here. And the last time they played on Saturday, October 20th, was 1917 in Pullman, Washington. Oregon won 26-3. Our third game, number 22, Mississippi State, 4-2. At number 5, LSU, Baton Rouge at night, Death Valley, coming off a huge win. 112th meeting between these two. Goes back to 1896. LSU 73-35 in one tie. But the times they played on Saturday, October 20th, 1928, LSU won. 2001, LSU won. LSU's now 2-0. How's this going to happen? Is LSU still high and keep going for Coach O? Or is there going to be a letdown somehow against Mississippi State?
Both these teams have great scoring defenses. If you look at Mississippi State, they're only giving up less than 13 points a game, and LSU less than 17 points a game. Now the key is, how are they going to be motivated in this game? It's going to be up to Coach O. You break this football game down, they're going to keep their formula. Their formula is this. It's very simple. It's old school football. Run the ball, stop the run, and don't turn the ball over. That's their success, and especially at home. Joe Burrow, the quarterback, has not thrown an interception. They run the ball successfully with the running backs and the quarterback position, and the defense does a terrific job of stopping the run. Now, if you look at Coach O, he doesn't get enough pats on the back for what he's been able to do at LSU. If you go back to Mississippi when he was the coach there, wasn't very successful. When he was at Southern Cal, the interim coach, I thought he did a pretty good job, but he wasn't their cup of tea. You put him at LSU, he gets the head coaching job, and this is how well they're coached. They didn't make mistakes on the sidelines. They were very composed last week against Georgia. They were very confident at home against Georgia. They played a big-time football team, and they beat them at home. They're going to be prepared for this football team because I think this is a very well-coached football team, Coach, from the top down. I think Coach Olds earned his bones, and I think he's learned a lot from the past, and I think he's ready to be a big-time head coach in the SEC. And right now, he's got a team that not many people had a lot of confidence in, riding high in the top 5 right now. I'm going LSU 27, Mississippi State 17.
Oh, you're cheating. You copied me.
What?
That's like cheating in school because I have the same exact score, 27-17, for a couple different reasons. No more. I'm going to cover up my paper. You can't look at mine anymore, Mark, because you're cheating on me. But let me tell you what. I agree with you about Coach O. He's from Louisiana. He has that accent down there. And the players are comfortable around him, and the fans are as well. And, you know, Joe Burrow has made all the difference in the game. And here's a guy who had paid a tremendous amount of money to the offensive coordinator from Pitt to come to LSU and rejuvenate his offense. He didn't work out. He replaced him with Emzinger, who's doing a good job. The guy he replaced is now the head coach at Maryland on an interim basis. But here's the other thing, Mark. Mississippi State, in 2 games, Kentucky and Florida, their offense scored 6 points and 7 points, respectively. You don't win in the SEC by scoring 1 touchdown against big games. The other thing about Mississippi State, Nick Fitzgerald's a great quarterback. He's leading the team in passing. He's also leading the team in running. Dave Aranda, the great defensive coordinator, who's the highest paid he's making 10 times more than I made as head coach at Notre Dame to be the defensive coordinator, but he's worth every penny of it. He will figure out a way to stop a one-man offense. And Coach Moorhead, who came to there, became head coach of Mississippi State, was at Penn State before, was their offense coordinator, done a great job, but he's got to learn a little bit about the SEC.
Learning about the SEC because Mississippi State's going into Baton Rouge. I'm excited. I'd like to go there. That's a bucket list. Death Valley at night. Now, our fourth game has a lot of history to it. And You've got the Ohio State Buckeyes, number 2 Ohio State Buckeyes, going on the road to West Lafayette to take on Jeff Brom and those Purdue Boilermakers. Now, Ohio State's only had one real road game. They went down to Dallas, played TCU, and it's a good win. But there's a lot of history to this because you think about Purdue and you got to go to the coaching manual. So I bring out the old coaching manual here, and I think about a coach, and I'm wondering if this conversation's going on in Columbus right now. And what it says is that from the moment I arrived at Ohio State, Coach Hayes had left no ambiguity about my primary job. You've got to figure out a way to shut down Purdue. Now, is that conversation going on up in Columbus right now? And the reason I ask that is, if there is a definition of a trap game, this is it. Because they're going to be fired up in West Lafayette because the Buckeyes are coming in. As we know, there's probably a lot of Buckeye fans in West Lafayette, Indiana. But at the same time, Jeff Brom has got those boys back on a roll. And you know what? Beat Ohio State. Don't forget all about Eastern Michigan. Mark, what are your thoughts on this?
Ohio State better watch out about this game. David Ball, their quarterback's been outstanding, 68%, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks. Not only that, the true freshman Rondell Moore has been spectacular for them. Not only receiving, but running the football in the return game. He's somebody they better watch out for. He's a terrific athlete with a lot of speed. But Dwayne Haskins with the football, hey, he's been spectacular throwing the football for Ohio State. 72% completion rate, Coach. 28 touchdowns and just 4 interceptions. Those are phenomenal numbers. Those are championship numbers. And he's a better passer than many people thought. The running game with Mike Weber might be a little banged up, but J.K. Dobbins will get the job done. I think this game, Ohio State's still going to win because they have better athletes, but Purdue will put a scare in this football team. But Ohio State, after they have been the last few weeks, they pull away in the fourth quarter, 39-24.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be a heck of a ball game. As far as in '68, Purdue had Coach Hayes 35-0 halftime the year before. But they did have Mike Phipps at quarterback. They had Leroy Keys at tailback, Jim Bearden, a great wide receiver. And we did beat them. We shut them out, I might add. But this is a different Ohio State team. I am a little disappointed they cannot run the ball better, Mark. I think Ohio State's always had great offensive line, but they had tremendous difficulty in protecting the passer against Minnesota. They could not run the ball against Minnesota. Minnesota really was a more physical football team up front. Haskins had another great game, threw for over 400 yards, I think 432 yards. He's just a great quarterback. But Purdue should be 5-1 at the present time. They lost their first 3 games. 2 of the losses occurred because they got a foolish, unnecessary roughness penalty in the last minute of the game that cost them a victory. I think Nick Holtz, the defensive coordinator at Purdue, used to be at Southern Cal, doing a tremendous job. I've watched him. He'll come up with different schemes. He's sort of a gamble and not one of these, well, let's defend everything. He's going to attack you. I look for Ohio State to win the game 41-31, but Ohio State has got to figure out how to play better on defense. You know, they're in the mid-50s on almost every statistic, Mark, and you don't win championships doing that. Now, let's remember, Ohio State only had 3 starters returning on defense, and then they lost Boza, who's their best one. So, in essence, they only have 2 defensive starters. They have young defensive backs who play a lot of man coverage, man free, etc. They're giving up a lot of big plays. That could be disastrous at Purdue. But I think Ohio State prevails 41-31.
Well, 41-31 and Marquette 39-24. So you at home, go to thecrowdside.com right now, get on the contest, or do it on the app, and pick Purdue. I'm calling Purdue right now. Y'all figure the score out. I'm saying Jeff Brom's going to pull it out. So that is our Week 8 College Football Show contest. And now we're going to get ready for our Rapid 5. Now that you're done entering your scores for the Week 8 College Football Show contest, let's talk about our Rapid 5 contest. We have number 20, Cincinnati at Temple. A big AAC matchup. Colorado, number 15, Washington. Number 6, Michigan at number 24, Michigan State. Vanderbilt is at number 15, Kentucky, and Citadel at VMI in Lexington, Virginia. And that game is all about tradition. But let's start off with our first game in the Rapid 5. Number 20, undefeated Cincinnati Bearcats, led by Luke Fickell, and Louisville, Kentucky, St. Xavier High School's own Desmond Ritter at quarterback. You know what? They're undefeated. Who'd have thought that? Now, they're playing Temple And Temple's also undefeated in conference, though they're 4-2. Defenses are both tough. Temple 4-3, wins over Maryland and Navy, and they played Boston College close. Mark, I think this game's going to be pretty close.
I think it will be. I think when you look at the young freshman quarterback Desmond Ridder, he's pretty good running the ball and throwing the ball. He's the second leading rusher for Cincinnati. But I like Cincinnati's defense and Luke Fickell. You mentioned that before. They're giving up less than 14 points a game. I think this is going to be a low-scoring affair. I'm still taking Cincinnati. They're 6-0 on the season, 24-13 over Temple.
Yeah, but Luke Fickell, he was a replacement coach at Ohio State, or their interim coach. He's done a great job. They started off beating UCLA. That was impressive. Turns out UCLA isn't that good a football team. They haven't really beaten another good football team. You can't talk about UConn, Ohio U, Alabama A&M, Tulane, etc. On the other hand, I look for Temple to win the football game, Mark. How about this as a coach? You're sitting there in Temple, and your next 4 games, 3 of the team you're undefeated, and the 4th one, Houston's lost 1 game. They got to play Cincinnati, then they have to play UCF, then they have to play USF, and then Houston. 1 loss combined, but I like Temple the way they're coming on. I look for Temple to win this football game 31-27.
31-27, you heard it from Coach. Go enter that in your contest. But number 2, Colorado, coming off a loss. At number 15, Washington, coming off a loss. 18th meeting between these two that goes back to 1915. Washington won the last 8 to include 2016 national or the Pac-12 championship game, if you remember that. Colorado is only a couple years away from competing for that title. Both teams are coming off a conference loss. This is a emotion. So you automatically go with the home team. Mark,
you've got 2 good young quarterbacks, and Jake Browning's not a young quarterback, but they're young as far as I'm concerned with my age. But Steven Montez is a very good quarterback, both in the Pac-12. But I think when you look at this football game, Colorado hasn't beaten a team with a winning record. You look at their loss this year, their loss was at USC. And if you look at Washington, they played a tougher schedule. They lost at Auburn, basically, because it was in Georgia. It was almost a home game for Auburn. And they lost at Autzen Stadium in Oregon. So basically, those are 2 tough teams that they lost to that they played very well against. I think Jake Browning gets it done, even though running back Myles Gaskin's banged up in this game. I think at Washington's going to get it done. They're going to roll, and they're going to roll big time over Colorado, 42-14.
Well, the thing that would concern me about Colorado, not only have not beaten a team with a winning record, they only have 3 starters coming back on offense. And against Southern Cal, as we mentioned, they gave up 15 lost yardage plays. You can't possibly win that way. I am impressed with Washington. I think that the difference between Coach Peterson at Washington and when he was at Boise State, Mark, they're still good fundamentally. They're still sound. They're well coached. They're well drilled. At Boise State, they seem to have fun. You know, they ran all these trick plays. They did all these fancy things, and the players had fun doing it. Right now, they're a very methodical football team like everybody else, where I think if Coach Peterson, I respect him tremendously, let him have fun. Go back and run those trick plays, etc. It's great for your team. It's great for morale. And particularly on the sideline, when you put in a special play to work, everybody on the sideline gets all excited. I do not see the excitement in Washington right now. They're trying to prevent getting beat rather than going out, enjoying the game, playing it. But nevertheless, I think Washington will win 31-14.
Coach enjoying this game and enjoying playing it. We're going to see if that happens in East Lansing, because number 6 Michigan Wolverines are going up and face now number 24 Michigan State. It's 111th meeting. In-state rivalry goes back to 1898. Michigan leads 69-36, 5 ties. But Michigan State is won 8 of the last 10. I mean, think about Mark D'Antonio has had Jim Harbaugh's number. Mark D'Antonio and his Michigan State Spartans can stop the run. Jim Harbaugh is trying to run right now. And I think this just game comes down to Michigan State's going to say, Shea Patterson, if you're going to win, you have to beat us. We'll score. Even if it's 3-0, Shea Patterson, you have to beat us. We'll kick a field goal because our defense can hold. What do you think?
Well, if you look at Karan Higdon, the running back for Michigan, has almost 700 yards rushing on the season. They like to play smash mouth football, but they mix it up with a lot of RPOs for quarterback Shea Patterson. Not only that, you said Michigan State's got a good run defense. They're their #1 run defense in the FBS. So that's where their butter is made on the bread. But I think the key to this football game is, you mentioned it, Shea Patterson. He's completing close to 69% of his passes. Jim Harbaugh's opened up the offense a little bit more. They have more confidence in him. But Coach mentioned it before. It's the offensive line of Michigan that's gotten better each and every game. Their confidence level is very high. They know they can run block very effectively, but they can also protect the quarterback. And if you look at all the receivers for Michigan, from the tight ends all the way out, they're getting the job done. They're not dropping footballs. They're advancing in football, and they're playing great defense. And I always mention Don Brown, their defensive coordinator. He's been spectacular since day one when he arrived on campus at Michigan. He's been a terrific backup coach, his assistant coach, and his defensive coordinator. He's been phenomenal at Michigan. I think they get the job done. It's going to be a hard-fought battle because these two teams do not like one another. But Michigan's got better talent. They're going to win the game 31-17, even though Sparty's playing better than I thought they would. Going into Happy Valley, Michigan's going to get it done.
Well, they brought Jim Harbaugh in because they hadn't been able to have much success against Michigan State and Ohio State. Jim Harbaugh is 0 for whatever game they played against Michigan State and Michigan. He hasn't beaten them yet. However, a couple years ago, they have the game won. The guy drops a punt, ends up drops a snap from center on the punt and lose on the last play of the game. That was devastating. I just hope that Michigan will go into this game loose. When you want to win a game so bad, you get real tight. And if you hold your fist like this for 2 hours, you won't even be able to pick up a lamp. I think the key to this is Michigan to be very loose, very relaxed going into the football game, have faith and confidence in what they do. Michigan has 8 starters back on defense. They were great on defense last year. They're better this year. Devin Bush might be the best defensive player in the entire country for Michigan. He's just an outstanding player. And I think, and even though Michigan State's a very hard place to play, the 2 hardest places to play is Clemson, Southern Cal, and the third would be Michigan State because of a lousy locker room for the visiting team. But I think Michigan will prevail. 24-17, hard-fought game.
Well, if the Spartans stay around, it'll be a close game because their fans will get on board. If they don't stick around and it's a blowout, that place will be empty. We've seen that before. Now, our 4th game. Vanderbilt, 3-4. At number 14, Kentucky, who is having a season like no other in Lexington. And this game is the 91st meeting, goes back to 1896. UK 44-42-1. It's that close. Now, here's what's really interesting, because as a kid growing up in Kentucky, and you always heard about the score when football games were going on, this is only the 4th time since 1948. This game has not been played in November at the end of the season. But Kentucky's 2-1 in those games that not played in November. Bottom line, Darius Mason's Commodores had Florida down, could not step on their neck and finish it. They couldn't do it. Kentucky comes off a bye, a close loss to Texas A&M. So here's how I kind of see this right now. Derek Mason's just going to line them all up and say, Terry Wilson, you've got to throw because we're going to try to stop Benny Snell in your run. Beat us with the throw. Or, is Vanderbilt going to try to air it out over that Kentucky defense? Mark,
can't be a one-dimensional football team and expect to win championships, and that's what Kentucky is right now. Terry Wilson has more interceptions than he has touchdown passes on the season. And guess what? I broke my ankles jumping off the bandwagon, Benny Snell, because I went on the bandwagon for you last week, and you broke my heart against A&M, and you lost the football game. And you said before, you're a history major, Coach is a history major, I was a history major. Let me give you a little history right here. Last year, Kentucky had a 5-1 start. They ended up with a 2-5 finish. This year, Kentucky has a 5-1 start. What's going to happen? They've got the next 3 games at Missouri, Georgia at home, and at Tennessee. They could end up just like they did last year. I'm picking Vanderbilt in this game because Kyle Sherman, the quarterback, can throw the football. 23-20 over Kentucky. I'm going Vandy in the upset.
I hope you're right, Mark, because then Vandy can say, that's our best victory since Nevada. They haven't had a great win. They
almost beat Notre Dame.
Hey, Mark, Vandy was up 21 points on Florida, and they lost by 10, which meant they were outscored by 31 points. Vandy is averaging 25 points a game on offense and giving up 25 points a game on defense.
They almost beat Notre Dame.
And despite, you look at some of the teams they played. I do like Snell. I think Snell can run the football. The game is at Kentucky. I think that Kentucky wins this football game 24-13. And what is underestimated, Mark, is how good Kentucky's defense is. They are good.
Well, like I said, you got old Cash Daniel from Paintsville, Kentucky, and kind of a mix between next to Ken and the Boz, and you've got Josh Allen. You know what? Kentucky's going to shut them down. I think Kentucky wins, but like everything with a running team, it will be close. But our fifth game is all about tradition, and it's about the military tradition, and it's about two schools that have produced some alumni and graduates that have done great things for this country. And it's the Military Classic of the South. And what I'm talking about is you have the Citadel. The Military College of South Carolina is going to Virginia Military Institute in Lexington, Virginia. And they're going to kick off on Saturday at 1:30 in Lexington. And what's interesting about these two teams is Coach Holtz has played at both places. 3-0 against VMI, you're 2-1 against the Citadel. And this is a 74th meeting. First game goes back to 1920. And the reason is if you look at the years, they're kind of too busy fighting wars they were to play football. Citadel, tough teams for both. Right now, Citadel's 1-4. VMI is 0-6. You know what? Two different offenses. Citadel runs a triple option. VMI, kind of a spread. Get that thing going. But the key right there, though, is you have these cadets and you have the alumni from these games. Citadel, General William Westmoreland, Paul McGuire, and an great NFL player. You remember Livonia Stump Mitchell, Mark. You probably know Stump Mitchell. And the great Pat Conroy, the author. But VMI is a little different type of alumni. George C. Marshall, George S. Patton, Chesty Puller. Now, not all of them graduated from there, but Coach Bobby Ross, who won a national championship, is an alumni of VMI. So, with this game for the Silver Shako, which is a big old hat with a big display on it, this is exciting. Mark, who are you picking in this game?
I'm picking the team that runs the ball all the time, and that would be the triple option of Citadel. Lorenzo Ward has almost 500 yards, the fullback on the ground for the Citadel. How about this? The Citadel's 1-4. Coach, they lost 3 games by a total of 11 points. 1 game by 1 point in overtime. They could very well be 4-1. And I'm going for the Citadel in this game because you want to know why? They play at Alabama November 17th. They're not afraid to take on the big boys. The Citadel's going to win this game 27-17 over VMI.
You know, both these teams used to be in the Southern Conference, along with Virginia Tech, etc. And VMI used to have a great football program. John McKenna was coaching there in the early 60s. They continually beat Virginia Tech. They had a very fine program. Citadel is a beautiful school, great military school down there. But I have to go with VMI. And here's why. VMI has lost some very, very close games. They both lost East Tennessee State University. Both of them lost by 7. It's a very, very close game. Be very, very competitive. But I think that VMI can put more points on the board. I think they find a way to win 34-28 favor of VMI.
Hey, Coach Holtz, one of the winningest coaches of all time. You picked the wrong team to win on Saturday. Mark May, you picked the right one because we've won 11 years in a row against VMI, and we're going to win for the 12th. Bring that Silver Shako back to Charleston. And we want to let both of you know, go Citadel! Beat VMI!
Mayday, respect your elders and listen to Coach on this. Go Key Dead. Beat Citadel!
Well, I know that General Walters and Sergeant Major Yeagle down there at the Citadel will be cheering them on, along with alumni Major Brian Wilson, led up the road at the Institute, as they call it, with Dan Monahan, alumni Dom Ford, and Greg Vaughn, who are all cheering for the Institute. And oh, by the way, they'll like to tell you too, those from VMI, that they have the largest ring of all service academies, and it looks like, Mark, I think it's bigger than your Super Bowl ring, but it's going to be a great tradition and a great game. So that is our Week 8 picks for the College Football Show contest and the Rapid 5. But we have some winners from the previous Week 7. Let's talk about those winners, Coach, for the College Football Show contest. Who you got in front of you?
Okay, number 3 goes to Justin Borey. He gets $50 Amazon gift card. Congratulations, Justin. Number 2, Darcy McNabb. I love that Irish name. Gets $75 from an Amazon gift card. And number 1, Chris Parsons, $100 Amazon gift card. Congratulations, Chris.
My Rapid 5 contest top 3 winners are number 3, Bulldog Kid 52 gets a $50 Amazon gift card. Number 2, Tony Bazzo gets a $75 Amazon gift card. And number 1, Norm Files 2 gets a $100 Amazon gift card. Congratulations to all.
Well, I love the call signs instead of names, but who has the names? Let's talk about our attaboys. So, Mark, who are your attaboys for this Week 7 that we had?
Well, it was tough because so many players played terrifically this entire weekend with so many upsets, but I got to go with Iowa State quarterback Brock Purdy and their upset. 18-25, 254 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and their upset over undefeated West Virginia. Number 2, Joshua Kelly, the UCLA running back, ran for 157 yards and 3 TDs to upset Cal, giving Chip Kelly his first win as the Bruins head coach at UCLA.
That's his first win, but I can assure you it will not be his last win. Mine goes to Jarrett Garantino. He's a quarterback for Tennessee, 21-32, 328 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he wasn't even on the top 2 depth chart when the fall practice started. The other one I am proud to give is to C.J. Verdell. He's a freshman running back for Oregon. He rushed for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. He scored the winning touchdown in overtime. And why this is so great, he is the same freshman running back. They have the game won against Stanford. All they got to do is fall on the ball. He gets the ball, he fumbles, Stanford comes back and wins. How devastating that is. And then to be part of a great win like this, congratulations, CJ.
Well, gentlemen, as we get ready for this big Week 8 this weekend, I don't know, what are you all thinking most about? What are you looking forward to, Mark, this weekend?
To see if some of these teams in the top 25 can win instead of get upset by unranked teams, getting upset by underdogs, can continue to win and go forward. This is a time of year where players are nicked up, they're tired, they're beaten up, they're sore, they've got to focus. Some teams get a bye week and a week off, they can get healthy. These are the type of games that coach knows that you've got to keep your team focused and get them ready to play, because it doesn't matter who your opponent is, you better be ready each and every week, because every week, every game counts.
And the reason this is such an exciting time, you have some teams that are fighting to stay in the national championship race, but you also have some teams that are fighting to stay in the conference championship. For example, Oregon, Washington State, Colorado, Washington, and the list, Michigan State. However, you have some teams that are fighting to get to a bowl game. You reach a stage of the year, there's 2 types of teams. Those that have a chance to accomplish something, and those whose only satisfaction lies in ruining somebody else's parade. For example, Vanderbilt isn't going anywhere, but if they beat Kentucky, they're going to ruin Kentucky's parade. That's why every game is so critical. That's why teams are so motivated, because the coach, we are going to win a championship, but let's find a way to get to a bowl game. And I'll tell you what I'm really looking forward to next week. I'm looking forward to every one of our viewers sharing with their friends, telling them how they can watch your show, because I get more information from you, Colonel, than isn't worth a damn to me, but it's interesting, and I appreciate it.
Well, Coach, I'm going to keep doing the research for you, because just like that crossword puzzle, if you'd have listened to me last week, you'd have picked the Spartans. But like you, Coach, I'm going to tell all my friends, and I'm going to get on the contest, and I'm going to compete against Mark and Coach. But what I'm looking forward to this week, number one, is kind of telling folks to help those our friends. We all have friends in the Florida Panhandle that, you know what, they took Hurricane Michael head on. And it's the Florida Panhandle, Mexico Beach, Panama City, all the way up into Georgia and the Carolinas. So thoughts and prayers are with those folks. But you know what, you talk about a resilient group of folks. You know what, they're going to rebuild. But if you can help them, help them. There's drop-off points all over. Please do that. One of the things I'm also looking forward to, though, is looking at and checking online, and there's games online, but following the Valley Forge Military Academy football team. And Mark, you know some Valley Forge Military Academy alumni. Larry Fitzgerald, he went there and then went to Pitt. Shady McCoy, he went there and then went to Pitt. And it worked out pretty well for him. But Colonel Ken DeTrue, who's the Commandant of Cadets up there, he lets me know, you know what, who's doing good and who we need to kind of keep an eye out for. And Nasir Walker is a linebacker, team captain, leadership committee, 3.2 GPA. He's got 20 solo tackles, he's got an interception, and he's got 3 tackles for loss in the first 5 games. So Valley Forge Military Academy football, you know what, I love seeing where they start, because then you're going to hear about them much like a Shady McCoy and a Larry Fitzgerald. So my hat's off to them. For those that are deployed defending this country, you know what? Our hat's off to you. We're going to think about you. Rebel 6, please, you and your people, keep your head down, keep your powder dry, stay safe, and get it done. So please go to the Crowdsign College Football Show Contest podcast. Please Download our app, download the podcast, compete in the contest, but tell all your friends. It is a great weekend of college football coming up. We're excited, and I'm looking forward to see who can beat Mark and Coach, and we're going to announce your name next week. All the best, gentlemen. God bless.
From the 30, Johnson out of the shotgun. Dropping back, pressure on, throwing over the middle. Has Williams. 10, 5, touchdown!